thing for me to be doing. To think it wasn't, because I'd never tried out for a band in my life ever. I'd never been to an audition, so the whole process was actually really different. So my set of expectations weren't like, oh, it'd be great to play this song or that song. It was just so actually frightening at first,
Right.
and so intimidating that just to survive it, actually, that felt like kind of an accomplishment. And then, and so actually when we did go out on tour, it was so different because it was a new album, and so it was that to do, and it was just so much thrown on my plate. Like I had 2 guitars. You know, I should have had 2 guitars and a suitcase of pedals, and so I was learning how to play on different guitars, big amps. I mean, there was just so much. So when I think back at the time, it was just trying to survive the moment and enjoy it. It took me about a year before I could actually enjoy playing the shows because it was just so much to remember and so much to do. I never played more than 45 minutes probably before. So then to play 3-hour shows and all that stuff, it was just very different. You know, now it's weird now. 6 years later, it does play 3 hours. It wouldn't even faze me.
It's amazing. You just acclimate. You just acclimate to it, and it becomes what you do. For me, it was a little different because I didn't really have like the typical audition process so much as it was sort of like a kismet thing. I think he saw me play somewhere, and then after Ginger left the band, he thought of me, and then I flew out to Chicago, and we basically just jammed, like just the 2 of us. And he put me right to work. Like I played on Tear Garden within just 3 days of working together. So it felt very natural. Of course, it was intimidating because I'm 33, so like that's what I grew up on, this music in high school, and so that part of it intimidated me a little bit. But because everybody in the band made me feel so at home, like immediately, it just became like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be, you know. So that was kind of my process. But every next step that we take is like another challenge, and you just get through it together, you know, like the whole writing process, putting out the album, touring on the album. But it's been incredible, the responses we've been getting with this album, and I feel so proud because I was a part of that, you know.
It's great.
It's great.
No, I mean, my spiel was more similar to Jeff's, honestly. It's like, it was weird because it was like when I came in, my expectation of it, like, you know, obviously because I had never auditioned for anything, I'd basically been playing in basements, you know, so it was like, when I got here, like what I perceived to be how you would have to play these songs and like how you would have to approach playing on big stages, it's like, it's a completely different animal. So there was like this 1.5, 2-year period. I mean, like even still at this point, it's like there's just, there were all these things that on the surface I would have never assumed there were, but then like when you start to get ribbon and like you play somewhere like 8,000 people, you have to know those things or else it just doesn't translate. So it's, the whole process for me was just learning how to do the classic rock moves, and it was exciting because it's like, you know, like I like a challenge, and there's never been anything more challenging than just learning how to kind of bond yourself out, you know.
I remember 2010, you guys were playing, what was it? It was the Led Zeppelin drum solo, what is it?
Moby Dick.
Yeah,
Moby Dick.
Anybody else?
How about Jared?
I just want to know from everybody's standpoint, any day of rituals, anything that you do that you always have to do, or certain meal that you have to eat. You know, do you sit around all day just waiting for the show or sound check if there's,
Well,
I guess,
our
anything
general
specific?
day, and then
or-
they can kind of, because their schedules are a little bit different than mine. Our general day is, we sound check around 4, and then we obviously are doing this. I don't eat basically after 2 p.m. to try to keep my voice as strong as is possible, so I starve all day. After this, they go off and have a nice meal, come back all happy and talking about like apple pies but we essentially just, everybody kind of does their thing. I mean, everybody has different relationships. People hang out with different people. I generally just try to, I know it sounds really strange, and sometimes I even feel weird just sitting and doing nothing, because it takes a while to just kind of let go of life that way. Just the day, you know, talk to somebody on the phone. You just keep it really simple, and then about 90 minutes in, then we kind of go into show mode and start kind of warming up here and there. And it's kind of weird. There's just, even no matter where we are, no matter what the dressing room shitty or not, we kind of have a certain rhythm that we go into before the show. But their schedule's a little different.
Yeah, for me, I actually try to keep it really mellow. If there's a show day, even if I'm in a town that I haven't been to before, I won't go run myself ragged trying to do sightseeing. So people always think, oh, it's so great you get to travel for a living. But
Yeah.
I mean, I spent all day here.
Right.
You know, I mean, I've been to Denver many times before, but it's, you know, we're not out sightseeing and stuff all day. I just try to be real mellow so that I have as much energy to put into the show. Nothing special. I don't run 10 laps around.
Perfect answer.
Yeah.
I try to just do some kind of meditation or yoga every day just to ground myself because, you know, being in a different city every day, there's nothing specific that can ground you. And just
Sure.
constantly traveling is like, I have to have something. And if I do that, I can focus a lot better for the show.
Awesome.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, skateboarding. Like,
How about Michael?
So if you had one guitar chord that you could choose to describe you, Jeff, what would it be and why? It's a tough one, but
I like I would pick a C sharp, kind of suspended with the open B and E string. It's a good chord, right?
Yeah. I pretend I'm a E minor,
how about that for some reason?
E minor 9, but I'm really an A major 7. All right, one more.
Aaron.
I bought this when I was 12 in a small town in Oklahoma. Do you recognize it?
No, it's not official merch, so we're
It's
gonna have to
not?
confiscate that.
I didn't find anything about it, and I was just interested if you knew anything about
No, even now we're still bootlegged.
it. Is this a bootleg?
That's a bootleg,
From
yeah.
95?
That'd be probably 94,
You
but
have it?
huh? No, I don't want it. No, thanks. No, but no, there's a lot. Still, I mean, there's clocks and.
Yeah. I was 12. I was really excited.
All right, we got time for one more.
How about Aubrey?
When you're inspired, what form does your inspiration come to you usually? Visually or?
I don't know. I'm a very conceptual person, and it's kind of funny because I have flashes of inspiration all the time, but without context, I just feel like it's just the world's too wide. Like even just to try to contain my taste into one band, and you think of the things that I've done even under the Pumpkins name, I have way more divergent musical tastes. I kind of almost get offended about having to kind of dumb it down. And that's in some ways been my caustic relationship with rock and roll, because I see where a lot of people are rewarded for dumbing it down because basically that's all they can do.
Right.
It's like, you know, it's like celebrating somebody who can, you know, make a parakeet noise or something. It's like,
Right.
I mean, it amazes me that people are still into the parakeet noise after 20 years. But then again, when you think about it, if 1 million people are making the parakeet noise, well, they're going to pick one. And so usually it's the 1 or 2 people that make the parakeet noise. I consider myself from a different tradition. So trying to deal with popular music and its conformity of style. I mean, it's really funny to me now, like, just to give a perfect personal example, the Pumpkins' dalliances into electronica, circa starting 1994, which of course continued on and still continue on. At the time, were treated like really crazy, like, oh, this is really weird, and yet on the way over here, I heard a Muse song, and it's those exact same influences. I'm not saying these took from me personally, but I'm saying is rock bands using electronic elements, Linkin Park, it's completely now a normal part of music. But at the time, it was so like, oh my God, you're not pure enough. You should just stick to the guitar. I'd be like, why? And so we still deal with that. We still deal with, like, let's call it the 9th generation of that.
Right.
And it sublimates itself to projecting on her because well, you're a woman, so you must be there for some other reason other than being a great musician. You know, and it penetrates not just musical quotients. So, yeah. So for me, it's really just a process of being willing to listen to the greater voice, and then ultimately, at some point, it has to be negotiated into a communication. And when we do it happily, which I think we did on Oceania, I think there's a nice translation point there, where we can bring influences and emotional fields that are unique and popularize them so that the parakeets can steal from that, you know. But inspiration's a weird thing, because there are times where you sit down and you go, okay, I'm ready, I'm really in the mood, and it's like nothing is there.
Yeah, I tend to write a little bit, and so sometimes if I see something, like if I see a painting or something like that will inspire me, or
Yeah,
something I hear.
But I'm not arguing with you, but where I would caution against that is I don't like when we as artists are relying on external stimulation, because I think that that's a little bit like, you know, you're asking for something that you're not going to get enough of.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you learn to open your mind and just trust what comes through, then that painting has a different significance, because you really have a storehouse of images and relationships that you can go to, that you can draw from. And I'm often surprised by the things that I think of. In fact, one last thing, recently we rehearsed out in Villa Park, which is outside of Chicago, which is about 20 miles away from where I grew up. And so I got lost one day, or I missed the turn, and I got to this intersection, and I realized that was the intersection where I had the memory that I wrote 1979 from. But I was on the other side of the intersection. And I had this particular memory when I was 18 years old of sitting in my terrible car, and it was raining in a cold Chicago day, and the heat didn't work too well. And whatever I was feeling in that exact moment, that's what I wrote 1979 from. So only, 6 months ago, I was sitting at the cross from the intersection, and I was like, what was it about me sitting at this intersection that I later, whatever it would have been, 13, 14 years after that moment, that I recalled to write a song emotionally. It's very strange to me. I couldn't in a million years tell you what it was about that, other than I had it in my memory bank and it meant something at that exact moment. It wouldn't mean this. I sat there and I looked at the intersection and thought, this is like any other intersection in the world. Nothing special about it. So I think it's more about, yeah, because I was once in a relationship with somebody who needed to live in a particular city because they needed that city to stimulate their artistic and aesthetic muse, and I'm really suspicious of that. And I'm not saying that against you. I'm saying I'm suspicious of that when artists need that, because you're in a way you're begging for somebody to tap you on the head and go, hey, do something.
Yeah.
It's always there, and I think that's a way more powerful construct. Okay, we got to go. Thanks.
Thanks.